Some of you might know this picture. It's a piece of art that I share with every bar and bat mitzvah child before their bar and bat mitzvah. I take them into my office and I show it to them. We go into my office before a bar and bat mitzvah for the purpose of having a few short opening prayers, for taking a moment before the craze of the bar mitzvah begins, and to really, take a breath. We'll do it tomorrow morning, Seth, wherever Seth went. There he is. The piece of art that I'm showing you right now is something that Shara and I bought on our 2-month trip to Russia back in 2002. We were going to Russia to work with a local Jewish community. We were working with specifically English teachers, and we worked in Moscow, we worked in St. Petersburg on rebuilding efforts. And when we were in Moscow, we had a chance to meet this artist who was truly amazing. He had only discovered that he was Jewish about 5 years before we met him. And he was excited about his Jewish identity. He had embraced it. And in the drawing, what you'll see is a man who is praying with his hand raised over his mouth. And every time I show this to a bar and bat mitzvah child, I ask them what they think the man is doing. And oftentimes they'll let me know and they get it right. The man's covering his mouth because he's hiding. He's praying silently, because he knows that being publicly Jewish is unsafe. This was the great-grandfather of the artist that we met. And he painted lots of paintings about him. You see, he couldn't understand how he didn't know, except for 5 years earlier, he didn't know for his whole life that he was Jewish, and he realized through his art that he didn't know because it was hidden from him. And if you think about it, for most of Jewish history, this was the reality. We could not be Jewish in public because we were hated. We could not do what we just did because we were hated. And therefore, what did we do? We practiced our tradition behind walls and secret rooms. The man who created this drawing here, he embraced his Jewish identity. He dedicated his art to understanding why he never knew he was Jewish. And the reason that I show this to kids, because I want to ask them something that I don't think they realize when they're going through religious school here, that I don't think they realize here in America, where it's so easy to be Jewish. I want them to think and wonder how a tradition like ours could survive. How could a tradition that faced persecution and hatred time and time again, how could it possibly live on? And listen, there are plenty of traditions and religions and cultures that have been wiped out because of persecution and hatred. So how did Judaism survive? How tonight? Tonight, how are we sitting here in this sanctuary after watching these beautiful kids sing the Shema and the V'ahavta and the Micha Mocha, kids who are learning prayers, who are coming to understand what they mean, why they're important? How did this happen? Truth is, I think we could have asked that question to the community that gathered in Squirrel Hill last weekend. I think we could have asked that question to the members of the Tree of Life Synagogue. We could have asked that question to Joyce Feinberg, who was a research specialist at the University of Pittsburgh and a grandmother. We could have asked it to Richard Gottfried, who was a dentist, owned a dental practice with his wife. We could have asked it to Rose Mallinger, who was 97 years old, and despite her age was called spry and vibrant. We could have asked it to Dr. Jerry Rabinowitz, who was a volunteer with the local Chevra Kadisha, the group that takes care of bodies after people die. We could have asked it to Cecil and David Rosenthal, brothers, with their own challenges, who were at Shabbat services every week to welcome people. We could have asked Bernice and Sylvan Simon, a married couple in their 80s who were actively involved in their community, who were loved by so many. We could have asked Dan Stein. We could have asked Melvin Wax. Or we could have asked Irv Younger, whose first cousin is sitting with us here tonight. We could have asked any of these 11 people We're at the Tree of Life Synagogue last Shabbat. How this tradition survived, why it's important. But we can't because they lost their lives. And they lost their lives because they were Jewish. They lost their lives because a man who was fueled with anti-Semitic hatred brought destruction, sadness, and grief on a whole community, and yes, on a whole people as well. And so in the wake of these deaths, I want us to look at this piece of art, and I want us to recognize its relevancy to who we are and why we're standing here today. For today, in America, in Pittsburgh, in Rockland County, being Jewish still puts you at risk. We're still hated. In the year 2018, with a Jewish state, with Jews in positions of leadership, with Jewish themes and ideas embedded in culture, we're still hated. We're still vulnerable. So what do we do? What do we do in the face of this hatred? What do we do in the face of this hatred? I think the answer is what we're doing tonight. We come here. We're here in the sanctuary, in the synagogue, on this Shabbat, doing what we've done for countless generations, taking one day out of the week and declaring that day holy, taking a step back from our busy and our hectic lives, just pausing it all. And perhaps Shabbat reveals a piece of the answer as to why Judaism has survived. Judaism has survived because it's life-affirming, because in the most difficult of times, it has given us context. It has provided us with the ability to recognize that the world has goodness. The world has meaning. See, that is why that man in the picture still prays. Despite the hand in front of his mouth, he still prays. For those prayers provide him not only with solace and comfort, but also inspiration. Inspiration to live on, inspiration to make this world a better place. So I believe that the 11 who perished understood the meaning of Judaism, the blessings of Judaism, the overall necessity of Judaism. They died in the most sacred of spaces. They died in the synagogue, the gathering space of our people, the space where Judaism has lived and survived. And we come here tonight not only in their memory, but also in a commitment to ensure that these places survive. You see, our synagogues still matter. This place still matters. And to those of you who do not belong to a synagogue, or those who are thinking about leaving, I ask you, I beseech you, remember, Judaism lives only in a community, only in a space of people who gather, who care about one another. Judaism is not a private affair that's done in the home. It's an obligation to a community. It's an obligation to something that is bigger than you, that is bigger even than your family. And so we come here tonight in a commitment to see Judaism survive, to stand up to those who seek our destruction, and to say quite clearly, our people matter. Our people matter in a world that has become fueled by hatred and division. Our people matter in a world that has become consumed with power over justice, revenge over compassion. Our people, our tradition matter more today than ever. We honor the memory of these beloved souls who sought nothing more than what we seek tonight, who sought to come to synagogue and to find hope in the light and the warmth of Shabbat, who sought to find hope and meaning in Judaism. We honor them by being here today tomorrow, well beyond. We honor them by standing up as proud Jews, by utilizing the calls of our prophets to fix this broken world, to bring it together. Let us take a moment of silence in their memory.